Tonight on Bridge City News, an Indonesian plane goes down carrying 189 people. So far, rescuers have only been able to recover a handful of bodies. A local rabbi speaks out about the deadly shooting at a Pittsburgh synagogue, which left 11 people dead. And a local body shop in Lethbridge is offering 2 incredible gifts to needy families just in time for Christmas. We have the details. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. An Indonesian airplane carrying 189 people, including 3 children, crashed shortly after takeoff from Jakarta. The new Boeing 737 went down just 13 minutes after takeoff by the Indonesian island of Bangka. The Lion Air flight JT610 was carrying 181 passengers, along with 6 cabin crew members and 2 pilots. So far, rescue workers have retrieved 6 bodies from the sea. The plane's tail has been recovered, but the main wreckage has still not been located. The captain and co-pilot of the plane had quite a bit of experience between them, having logged more than 11,000 flight hours. In wake of the crash, Australia has advised its government officials not to fly Lion Air. The low-cost carrier is one of dozens of Indonesian airlines banned from EU airspace in recent years amid safety concerns. Lion Air was added to the European Union's blacklist of banned carriers from 2007 to 2016. The Jewish community is still reeling after a weekend shooting that left 11 people dead at a synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Bridge City News was able to obtain audio of the original 911 call.
7-1, shots fired. Give me additional resources. Third floor.
Third floor, contained in one room. One operator down.
We have eyes on the door. We have one operator hit high in the arm. Pick that up and put a gun on it. We have one operator hit high in the arm. We have a tourniquet. That's all I got right now. Shots were still going off when I came out of the room. I believe he's still alive.
I've got about 7 out here. Access to the third floor. Next Boeing gunfire, we're taking it.
We're treating this as a barricaded gunman. We're going to work the problem. How copy? All right, be advised, we have a suspect giving us hands and negotiating a surrender at this time. All units, hold what you got.
A makeshift memorial is growing outside of the synagogue in Pittsburgh, where the 11 people were killed. There is a white Star of David for each person killed with their name inscribed. Passers-by laid flowers at the memorial. The gunman, Robert Gregory Bowers, opened fire with an AR-15 rifle and other weapons during a worship service inside of the Tree of Life synagogue. He killed 8 men and 3 women before police tracked him down and shot him. He expressed hatred of Jews during the attack and later told police all these Jews need to die. 6 people were also injured in the attack, including 4 police officers. At least 2,000 mourners packed a memorial hall in Pittsburgh yesterday, and thousands more stood outside remembering those who lost their lives on Saturday.
We will continue to thrive and sing and worship and learn together and continue our historic legacy in this city with the friendliest people that we know.
Lethbridge Rabbi Sidney Speakman describes how he and his congregation at the Joyful House of Prayer reacted when they received the news of the shooting in Pittsburgh.
We were probably a half hour into our worship service at our synagogue, and someone received a text and interrupted the service at this, and everyone was in shock. We changed the order of service and spent about 15 minutes in individual and corporate prayer for the situation. The feeling of the people, even here in Lethbridge, was we've been violated. It's hard to explain, not anger, but more remorse of how could this happen. And it's still that kind of feeling amongst our community.
Rabbi Speakman also expressed concern today over marijuana shops setting up near churches and synagogues in our city. Lethbridge received news that 3 licenses have now been handed out to businesses which can now sell recreational use marijuana.
I think it's a bad mistake that our government and our country has adopted that policy. Here in Lethbridge, there seems to be no consideration for churches and youth and children that attend churches. And the city did not listen to over 1,000 petitioners, 1,000 voters who didn't want retail marijuana shops next to churches.
Calgary-based New Leaf Cannabis Group has now permission to open outlets on Mayor McGrath Drive South and on University Drive West. They're among 43 across our province to have successfully completed the application process. Police across the prairie say crystal meth has now taken over as the drug of choice on the streets, overtaking opioids. According to recent reports, meth followed by heroin and fentanyl are the top drugs consumed at Arches, which is the safe injection and consumption site in our city. Police say a big reason as to the increase in meth is the misconception that it's safe and the cost. A gram of meth is only $5 to $10, while a single hit of fentanyl can run anywhere from $40 to $60. Opioids accounted for just under 4,000 deaths in our country in 2017, up from 3,000 in 2016. A Catholic priest who has worked at a number of parishes across southern Alberta, including here in Lethbridge, has been placed on administrative leave over allegations of sexual misconduct. The Roman Catholic Diocese of Calgary says the misconduct allegedly occurred at St. Mark's Parish in Calgary, while Father Malcolm D'Souza was the priest there between 2010 and 2016. D'Souza was an associate priest as well at St. Basil's in Lethbridge in late 2002. The allegations involve 2 minors and several adults. Anyone with information about the allegations is encouraged by the church to contact police or the diocese. The statement was announced over the weekend at every parish where D'Souza served. You may remember seeing a video which went viral of a pro-life demonstrator being savagely kicked by a pro-choice protester. That pro-lifer was Marie-Claire Bissonnette, the youth coordinator for Campaign Life Coalition. She says standing up for the unborn can be a challenge at the best of times, especially when politicians won't touch the topic of abortion.
In 1988, the Supreme Court threw out the abortion law, and they said, okay, it's up to the politicians to bring up a law, and none have done that. So we really need to start electing politicians according to their belief in the respect of human life and vote for them if they're pro-life. And if not, we need to make sure that they know that we do not support them because they do not support life.
Catch my full interview with Marie-Claire Bissonnette as she discusses what led up to the attack by the pro-choice protester coming up in the second half of our show. The Taber District Health Foundation is putting on its 24th annual telethon on Thursday. After raising nearly $500,000 in 2014, the foundation has received an average of about $220,000 a year for the past 3 years. This year, they have a goal in mind as well of about $150,000.
At the end of the month, so the end of October, beginning of November, we get the list, the magic list, which comes from Alberta Health Services as well as the different departments within the hospital to tell us the things that they would like funded for next year. And usually those costs run about, or those expenses are about $150,000 to $180,000. So really we're just wanting to meet the expenses that people would like to see covered.
The telethon used to air on Shaw TV, but since the broadcaster says it will no longer carry the event, it'll be live streamed on the Health Foundation's website and on its Facebook page. The holiday season is quickly approaching, and Big Al's Auto Repair is getting ready to give again. Last year, the auto shop prepared to give away 1 van when their staff developed a relationship with a single mom in need. Big Al's then decided to give away the shop's shuttle vehicle so that a second family could ride home happy. One of their mechanics, Sean Hammond, looks forward to helping out needy families each and every year.
If I could do it every day, every day of the year, I totally would. Unfortunately, we're still a business, so we still have to make money. But yeah, if we could do more, and if we had more capacity, we would definitely do more. The joy of it is just incredible.
All of the vehicles donated are loaded with goodies like groceries and gift cards. Dozens from Edmonton's Filipino community attended a swab drive yesterday to find a stem cell donor for a 16-year-old girl in Calgary. Rosalind Mance was diagnosed with rare conditions that affect the way her body produces blood cells. Only 28% of the Canadian Blood Services database is ethnically diverse. Only 1% of donors are Filipino. The next event in the Match for Rosalind campaign will be a 2-day swabbing drive in Winnipeg, November 3rd and 4th. Alberta NDP Government House Leader Brian Mason is urging members to prepare for a daunting election. In his farewell address to the party at its annual convention in Edmonton yesterday, Mason says the opposition UCP will bring cuts to the budget and an acceptance of views from intolerant groups. Mason says the spring vote will be a critical one to continuing his party's legacy of capital spending, a higher minimum wage, and economic diversification. UCP leader Jason Kenney says his party has made it clear that it will not tolerate hateful views. Alberta's finance minister says he learned through the media about Ottawa's contribution to the proposed 2026 Olympic Winter Games in Calgary. Joe Ceci is accusing the feds of bargaining in bad faith. He says the province's commitment of $700 million to the Games is firm. A federal government spokesperson says Ottawa would contribute $1.75 billion, but that figure is based on 2026 dollars. CC says the province's $700 million pledge was based on a federal commitment of $1.7 billion in 2018 dollars. Former Conservative MP Maxime Bernier is preparing for the 2019 fall election with his party called the People's Party of Canada. Bernier was on Bridge City News recently and says he believes Canadians want a change in government, and it's not the Tories nor the NDP.
But what happened in Quebec this week with a new government, and in also New Brunswick with a new government, people are ready to vote for a new party. They voted for the CAQ in Quebec, so they're ready to vote for a new party. I think they want real change in this country, and the old parties that they're doing politics and they try to please everybody and with promising everything to everybody. Canadians are fed up with that. They want to change, and we will represent that change.
Catch my full interview with Monsieur Bernier as he explains why he should become the Prime Minister, coming up right after business news. Residents of the Winnipeg neighborhood of Port Douglas have started patrols to stop arsonists. Sal Burrows, chair of the Point Douglas Residents Committee, says as of last Friday, 5 fires were set in the area. That is in addition to a fire that killed a woman and an 11-year-old girl in the neighborhood, which many believe was deliberately set. A Winnipeg police spokesperson says more information about the fires and their investigations would be released very soon. Some northern Saskatchewan communities will soon be receiving free produce that might otherwise have been left to rot in the fields. Southwestern Ontario Gleaners and Crossroad Canada have teamed up with Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation to distribute around 20,000 kilograms of produce that is either over or undersized. The food was trucked out from Ontario and arrived in Prince Albert on Friday. A spokesperson with Crossroad Canada says pears, apples, carrots, peppers, tomatoes, and cucumbers arrived for this particular trip. Tens of thousands of people celebrated as Brazil elected far-right politician Jair Bolsonaro as president over the weekend. He promised to defend the Constitution and unite a bitterly divided populace. Supporters cheered while his left-wing rival immediately vowed to mount a vigorous opposition. The Boston Red Sox beat the Los Angeles Dodgers 5-1 to capture the World Series 4-1 yesterday. Former Toronto Blue Jay Steve Pearce, who homered twice yesterday, was named the World Series MVP.
Best feeling of my life. This is what you're growing up wishing that you could be a part of something like this, and with that special group of guys out there to celebrate with them, that was awesome.
And from day one, when he got to New York, first pitch he saw, he hit a double of CC. And he's been great, not only on the field, but in the clubhouse. He's been a great teammate.
When Pierce hit that 2-run home run in the first, that was huge. We have done a really good job of scoring in the first inning, all postseason. To get that 2-run cushion before you even throw your first pitch, even though I gave back a run with that first pitch that I threw. But when Pierce hit that ball, that was I think that pumped up everybody.
Nice to see a former Toronto Blue Jay being named the World Series MVP. An overcast and cooler day in the Windy City today, but warmer temperatures are on the way, but only for short term. I'll have all of the weather details coming up shortly. A mainly cloudy day and slightly cooler today. Tonight clearing with a low near 0. Tomorrow mainly sunny with a high near 11. Wednesday lots of sunshine again with a high expected near 12. Thursday the mercury will drop to 6 degrees. Friday periods of snow mixed with rain and a high near 5. Saturday mixture of sun and cloud and a high again near 5 degrees. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 10 degrees and an average low of -3. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1962 at 24 degrees, and the record low was a chilly -26 in 1991. Sunrise was at 8:15, sunset at 6:15. Let's have a look at how tomorrow's shaping up across the country. Lots of rain is expected in Vancouver with a high of 11. Victoria will also have showers and 11 degrees. A mixture of sun and cloud in Calgary tomorrow and a high near 10 expected. A similar picture for Edmonton on Tuesday. Regina will have increasing cloudiness and a high of only 6. Saskatoon will be overcast and 5 degrees. Winnipeg will be mainly cloudy and 6 degrees. Toronto will be partly cloudy and 13. Considerably cooler in Ottawa tomorrow, mainly sunny, but a high of only 5. Montreal will be mainly cloudy and 5 degrees as well. Over in the Maritimes, Fredericton, New Brunswick will have showers and 7. Clouds with showers and a high of 12 in Halifax. Charlottetown, PEI will have rain and 10 degrees. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, a good chance of rain, but a high of 15 is expected for tomorrow. Traders stood still on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange today, observing a moment of silence for the victims of the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. The shooting rampage that killed 11 people at Pittsburgh's Tree of Life synagogue on Saturday is being described as the deadliest attack on Jews in U.S. history. Flight attendants have ratified a new contract with Air Georgian, which operates regional flights on behalf of Air Canada. The airline says the 3-year deal includes compensation increases, an RRSP contribution program, and an increase in days off. The 83 flight attendants represented by the Canadian Union of Public Employees work out of an Air Georgian's Toronto base. A pipeline explosion near Prince George, BC earlier this month could mean higher vegetable prices next spring. Fortis BC, which is one of the province's largest utilities, says natural gas supply will be reduced by 50 to 80% during the coldest months of the year. A spokesperson with the BC Greenhouse Growers Association says any higher costs in gas prices will be passed on to consumers. Linda Santi says natural gas is a vital part of the growing process, not only as a heat source, but because the carbon dioxide it produces feeds the plants. G3 Canada Limited announced it will build a new primary elevator near Carmangay in southern Alberta. G3 boasts the state-of-the-art facility and will be able to empty a Super B truck in less than 5 minutes and load 134 car trains in a matter of hours on the loop track. The elevator will be on a CP rail line and have a capacity of 42,000 tons. Construction is expected to begin shortly and be completed by 2020. In the same time, the G3's new grain export terminal in Vancouver also becomes operational. Health Canada has issued warnings to 7 cannabis producers since October 17th for violating new federal laws against promoting marijuana. It is the latest stumble for an industry that has been mired in a countrywide product shortage and has had shipping delays. Health Canada declined to identify the pot companies or how they broke the rules. The statement, however, is a rare admission from the Canadian government that the rollout of legal cannabis has not been as smooth as policymakers had hoped. Now here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, an Indonesian airplane carrying 189 people, including 3 children, crashed shortly after takeoff from Jakarta. The new Boeing 737 went down just 13 minutes after takeoff by the Indonesian island of Bangka. So far, rescue workers have retrieved only a handful of bodies from the sea. When you see news happening, drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of today's top stories, check out our full newscast online at bridgecitynews.ca. The pro-life demonstrator who was the subject of a viral video after she was attacked by a pro-choice protester is on our show next. Marie-Claire Bissonnette explains what led to the altercation, but first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The Miners Days Historical Association of Colehurst is holding its annual Christmas craft sale on Saturday, November 3rd from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Colehurst Community Center. Come out and see unique gift ideas from over 40 vendors. You're invited to the Knox United Church Annual Fall Supper being held Sunday, November 4th at the Tabor Community Center from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m., featuring delicious roast beef and cabbage rolls. Tickets are $15 for adults, $6 for youth ages 6 to 12, and those 5 and under are free. Tickets are available at the church office or at the door. Takeout will be available. Come out for a special evening entitled A Touch of Music and Inspiration, taking place Monday, November 5th in the lower level of the Keg. Enjoy music from the mixed quartet Forever Praise and hear an inspiring message from author and life coach Grace Fox on being an anchor in life's storms. Dinner is at 6:30 p.m. To reserve your spot, call B at 403-328-1708. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
A cell phone video of a man violently kicking a woman holding a sign at a pro-life demonstration in Toronto went viral. It brought attention on recent violence directed at pro-lifers. The woman who's holding that sign joins me now via Skype from Toronto, Marie-Claire Bissonnette, Youth Coordinator for Campaign Life Coalition. Thanks a lot for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Marie-Claire, you were recently attacked by a man at a Life Chain event in Toronto simply because you have different beliefs than he does on the abortion issue. Can you really describe what happened to you and what led up to that assault?
Well, I was in charge of organizing and handing out the signs at that street corner. And about halfway through the hour that we were there, I'd just like to clarify, it's a silent protest. It's peaceful. We're not supposed to engage in conversation or start it with people on the street. And halfway through, a man came up and he started scribbling on the signs. And so I told people to shield their signs. And then he got the brilliant idea of scribbling on people's backs, including the back of a 10-year-old girl. And so that's why I took out my phone and began recording, should he continue, and then I'd have proof of what he was doing. And that's when the video began. He was obviously unhappy about me recording him.
It's interesting. He seemed very calm, cool, collected. Then all of a sudden this roundhouse came out of nowhere and hit you.
Yeah, I definitely didn't expect it. You can see in the video, while I'm answering his question, he kind of positions himself to do that, but I had no idea he was going to kick me at all. But he apparently tried to kick my phone, which I was holding, but he kicked me in the shoulder and my phone went flying. And at which point, you can hear in the video, I yell for someone to call the cops and I tell him, don't touch me. And before he runs away, because someone began to call the cops, he went up to me and pulled a ribbon off my chest that indicated I was the leader, which was also very upsetting.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely. Did your phone survive?
It did, luckily, yeah.
Okay, well, that's good. So maybe the OtterBox actually paid off for you. Now, I understand that this man did get arrested and was fired from his job as a result. Do you feel any justice was served?
I think his employers did. I think they reacted well. It's not their fault that he did this, and unfortunately, they've received a lot of flack for that from both sides, from pro-lifers and pro-choicers. They've received a lot of anger and just negative comments and such. But I think that they reacted well, and yeah, so I thank them.
Now, apparently, the mainstream media really didn't want to give this much coverage at all, with the assault until after the video went viral on social media. Do you think it would have been a different story if it was a pro-choice woman who had been assaulted?
For sure. I think it would have been covered immediately. Just similar stories have happened with pro-choice women or women who've attended the Women's March, for example, and the story ended up being fake. And yet the CBC was all over it, as soon as it allegedly happened. And then, but I sent the video to the CBC first. They were the first people who received the video, and they did nothing. Even after it went viral, I gave them multiple chances. They refused to publish it. So.
Wow. What has the response been like from Canadian politicians? Has anyone reached out to you?
No one's reached out to me personally. I've had some politicians tweet on just in defense of women who've been assaulted. Garnet Jenness, for example, and Andrew Scheer retweeted his tweet. And so that's nice.
You know, unfortunately, violent acts against pro-lifers is not uncommon. Can you share with our viewers how often this really happens and maybe give some more examples of this violence?
Well, for example, the same day at a different street corner in Toronto, a man was covered with paint. This lady just poured paint all over him, ruining his clothes, etc. And the next day, this at the Ryerson campus, this Ryerson employee attacked one of the pro-life protesters there. And there's a video of that, and it's a much more brutal attack. And there are so many instances of this happening. A few years ago, a woman was, her hair was pulled, she was pulled to the ground. A man began kicking her and pulled out a knife on her. And you don't hear that in the news. And it just happens so often. I've gone through it multiple times. A lot of my coworkers have experienced it. It happens very often, yeah.
So if abortion clinics can have bubble zones forcing pro-lifers to keep a certain distance away, should not pro-life demonstrators maybe be able to have a bubble zone to keep pro-choice people a safe distance away, especially if they pull out knives?
Yeah, I want a bubble zone. I mean, luckily, Jordan Hunt, one of his bail conditions was that he's not allowed even to go near pro-life protests within 200 meters. So that's, I guess, kind of a bubble zone for him. But we should really be protected by angry pro-choicers.
Absolutely. Now, a pro-life media site called LifeSite News recently had their Twitter account suspended for hateful conduct for a post made about 4 years ago that stated facts found in a scientific study on health risks of homosexual activity. Is this a trend, and if so, can anything be done about it?
I think it is a trend. Our company, Campaign Life Coalition, has been also censored in a few of our posts. A lot of places in the States have been censored. They're starting to expand what they consider hate speech, and the liberals who are running these social media sites obviously have final say in what gets censored or not. And unfortunately, it's becoming so that conservatives and right-wing people are not being able to share their thoughts on social media.
So what is happening with the controversial new Gosnell movie? Now, that's about the abortionist Dr. Kermit Gosnell, who was convicted of serial killings of babies. The independent film has cracked the top 10 at the box office. Do you feel there might be a bias either for or against the film?
Well, I don't know too much about the film, but I do understand that there have been around 188 theaters who've refused to show it, even though it's been selling extremely well all over the United States. Unfortunately, it's not come to Canada. A lot of people have asked them to bring it to Canada, and I'm not really sure how well that's going to go or if it'll be allowed at all, but certainly the internet makes it possible for us all to watch it eventually, which is amazing. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah, online does open up the world for us, absolutely. Now, how are things coming along on university campuses in Canada? I know there are many student unions and administrations who try to shut down any discussions on the abortion issue. Is there any headway really being made here?
Not so, not
That's
so
a big
much.
sigh.
Yeah, there have been individual movements within university campus groups to speak out, especially since the video has gone viral. More and more are taking advantage of this public notice to speak out for their rights, the rights of free speech, especially because a lot of violence against pro-lifers does happen on campus. A few students from NCLN have made videos describing the violence they've experienced. So that's good. So hopefully we're building kind of a movement to show the world that this violence is really one-sided and it's against pro-lifers.
You know, it seems that no one wants to go anywhere near the issue in politics either. Now, what would you say to some of our viewers who are watching right now who believe why abortion is such a big issue, especially to you, Marie-Claire?
Yeah, I think it's definitely really the primacy, the right to life. Sorry, the right to life is the first right we have. It's the only right that allows all the other rights. And as soon as we start discriminating against individuals, against groups of people, that's when the horrors of the past come up again. And if you look at it, Canada is the only Western country that does not have a law on abortion. There are only 2 other countries in the world that do not have restrictions on abortion, and that is North Korea and China. And they do not have the best history of human rights respect with their governments. So I think it's very incumbent upon us to insist that our politicians do something, especially since in 1988, the Supreme Court threw out the abortion law, and they said, okay, it's up to the politicians to bring up a law, and none have done that. So we really need to start electing politicians according to their belief in the respect of human life and vote for them if they're pro-life. And if not, we need to make sure that they know that we do not support them because they do not support life.
So where do you see the abortion debate headed then over the next maybe 10 or 15 years?
I think it's going to open up. I think it's going to focus mainly on free speech, because our free speech as pro-lifers in Canada has begun to be taken away with Trudeau's summer jobs fiasco and with the bubble zones, et cetera. And also just people thinking it's fine to assault someone on the street because they're pro-life. So our free speech is going to be taken away. And I think that a lot more pro-lifers are going to realize that we have to act, or else it's all going to be taken away. And it's going to be a lot more personal. It's not just going to be about the dead babies that are being accumulated. Unfortunately, that's bad enough, but people are going to wake up when they realize that they're not even allowed to be pro-life anymore.
Tell me about some of the coalitions you've formed with other pro-life groups around the country.
So at Campaign Life Coalition, we try to be national. We have a lot of coalitions, I guess, within Ontario, Alliance for Life, that focuses a lot on media. They've created some beautiful commercials. And unfortunately, it goes back to the free speech thing. A lot of TV stations don't want to cover or don't want to show their commercials, or billboard companies are refusing to post their billboards, et cetera. And we try to work with a lot of the local Right to Life groups and just students, et cetera.
You know, it's interesting here in Lethbridge, too, Lethbridge, Alberta, we had pro-life bus bench ads with actual babies, you know, or some would call fetuses, I guess, on the bus bench ads, and saying, you know, that it's really not a choice for the child, it's murder. And City Council here in Lethbridge received about 200 to 300 signatures, or people who called in and complained about it, and they were removed.
Really? Wow.
So what are your thoughts about that when it comes to free speech?
Well, I think that obviously free speech is free speech. I think that if we allow both sides of the argument, even if one side is terribly wrong, we allow both sides of the argument, people can reason. And so we have to examine ourselves. And so if we start censoring people, then we won't be able to compare it to the truth, or if it's true, et cetera. And we'll go back to a situation like Nazi Germany, or just communist countries that don't allow the truth to be told, or don't even allow the opposite of the truth to be told, so that people can recognize the truth when they see it.
So moving forward, what's next for the Campaign Life Coalition?
We have a lot of political work to do. There is the PC, so the Provincial or Progressive Conservative convention coming up. We're trying to influence party policy. There are a lot of things that local people can do to join their electoral district associations and bring forth party policy. We're also trying to hit hard on the Ford government to honor his promise to repeal the controversial sex ed curriculum. If you're aware of what was happening there with the Kathleen Minns sex ed that she brought in, that was very age inappropriate, et cetera. And so we have hope that Ford will keep his promises. We hope for that. And I continue to do a lot of school presentations, just telling people about abortion. So
it's really about education, isn't it? Reaching out to the kids at an early age.
Yeah, that's very important, because once they get to university, there's so much indoctrination going on.
So if people would like to get involved with Campaign Life Coalition, where should they go?
Well, our website's a good place to start, campaignlifecoalition.com. And you can find there's a tab that says Take Action. You can find a lot of action items. You can also find a lot of information. And we're also available to call into our office. We'd love to talk to you.
Marie-Claire Bissonnette, Youth Coordinator for Campaign Life Coalition in Toronto. Thanks a lot for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Maxime Bernier dropped a bombshell in late August announcing that he was leaving the federal Conservative Party he had been once looking to lead. Since then, he started a new political party, the People's Party of Canada, and he joins me now via Skype from Ottawa. Monsieur Bernier, thanks a lot for joining me on Bridge City News.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be with you.
Now, did any member of the Tory party try to talk you out of leaving?
Yes, some of them, but you know, I had the discussion, a good discussion with Andrew Scheer 10 days before I decided to resign. And, you know, after that discussion, I said to myself, I had only two choices. First of all, to go back in the private sector, or if I want to fight for what I believe, more freedom and a smaller government, I said we must create our own party. And that's what we did, and I'm very happy with it.
So what were some of the reasons you gave Mr. Scheer about why you wanted to leave?
Yeah, first of all, you know, I didn't win the leadership campaign 2 years ago with 49% of the votes. That's okay. But a lot of members, conservative members, they like our ideas, our freedom ideas, and the reform and the bold reform that we fight for. And after that discussion with Andrew Scheer, you know, he told me that any of our reform or ideas in our platform, that won't be part of the platform of the Conservative Party of Canada for the next election. So I said, you know, if I want to stay in politics, I will be with a party and fight for what I believe. So when Andrew Scheer told me that, I decided, you know, I don't have any future in this party. We have a platform that people like, and we must go ahead with that. And that's what I did, and I'm very happy.
Now, I follow you on Twitter, as do thousands of other Canadians, and I've seen that you've been unhappy for quite some time now, and you've been wanting to leave for a little while. Did any of the Liberals or NDP talk to you about potentially crossing the floor?
No. I didn't speak with my colleagues, conservative colleagues, or other in the House, other politicians from other parties, so I didn't have time to speak with them. But, you know, it's not... I don't think that the NDP or the Liberal will come to us and support us. We have a platform against the old parties and platform that is based on a less government. And, you know, every member of parliament, they want to support a cartel of supply management. I'm the only one against that. So I didn't expect, and I don't expect any members to come to us. But we have a lot of support from the grassroots, and that's the most important for us.
So what were some of the biggest issues you had with the Tories and Andrew Scheer?
Well, the biggest one was, as you know, supply management. You know, that's very important. And we just saw that in the negotiation with NAFTA, with the US and Mexico. So if you believe in a free market and you believe that free market is good for us in Canada, how come you will support a cartel and a socialist system that it is a regressive tax on the poor? As you know, they are paying twice the price for poultry, milk, and eggs in Canada. So I'm the only one who is fighting for Canadian consumers. And the Conservative Party of Canada didn't want to change. So, you know, I didn't have any choice.
Now, many people are asking if starting another right-of-centre party will actually guarantee a Liberals majority. How do you respond to that?
First of all, we must say that before I started the party, Andrew Scheer was not winning. He was at 31% of the poll, and Justin Trudeau at 38%. So what I'm saying to them, if you're a conservative and you believe in conservative reform, you must come with us. And I had a lot of support. I have a lot of support from former conservative members, so that's great. But also I'm saying to the NDP, who want to get rid of supply management because it's a regressive tax on poor, they are welcome in our party. The NDP supporters who voted NDP, but they want to get rid of corporate welfare. We're the only party in Parliament that want to get rid of that. They are welcome in our party. And some Liberals also that voted Liberals during Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin for a balanced budget and lower taxes. That's not the Liberal Party of Canada right now. They're welcome in our party. So we want to build a strong coalition. And also people who don't believe in politicians anymore. there's 30% of the population in Canada who did not vote at the last election at the federal level because they don't believe anymore in politicians that are saying something a day and the opposite the other day. So we are doing politics differently, and I think we can attract and having a lot of support from Canadians all across the country.
Now, Monsieur Bernier, tell me about some of the backlash you may have received from former colleagues within the Tory caucus.
But, I'm in-house, I'm in Ottawa right now, and I didn't have any conversation with them. So I know that they don't like it because I'm having a lot of their membership that are coming to us. But that's a reality. They're not a conservative party anymore. They're like the Liberals, and they don't want to do the big reform that we need in Canada, speaking about the equalization. Changing the equalization formula. It is not fair. We need to change that formula to be less generous, and that's part of our program. They don't want to speak about that. They don't want to speak on different issues that are important for this country.
So how soon after you lost the leadership race to Andrew Scheer did you think to yourself, you know what, maybe I should form my own party? Was it maybe even a few weeks? You talked to your family, say, that's it, I'm going alone?
No. I tried to influence the party and the leader, and I asked them a couple of times to take some of our ideas that are very popular. But at the end of June, when people were telling me, Maxime, we won't take any of your ideas, I was a little bit disappointed. And that's why when I had the call 10 days before I resigned with Andrew Scheer, and he confirmed that, and he told me that all the ideas that I fight for and Canadians like, and our membership, the membership of the Conservative Party of Canada liked, they said we won't take it. At that time, I decided, let's do and create a party. We have a platform, and it's a very popular platform, so let's do it.
Now, what would you say to your constituents in the Quebec riding you represent? Because after all, they voted you in as a Tory, Conservative. Do you think maybe there's a little bit of backlash as well? They say, Maxime, come on, we voted you in as a Tory. You turned your back on us here.
No, what I'm telling them, and I like the question, it's a good question. I said, I'm the right guys. I always fight for smaller government, individual freedom, respect the Constitution, fairness. So I'm a real entrepreneur from both, and I'm very proud of that. And I said to them, you have the same guy, I won't change. That's the Conservative Party of Canada who changed. So I'm just, instead of, I just changed, I had maybe a Lada before, and now I'm in a Mercedes with a party that is 100% in line with what we believe in both and in this country. So the guy is the same. I just have another vehicle to express our position.
So how did you come up with that name then, the People's Party of Canada? Describe that for our viewers.
Yeah, because we are working for the people and not for special interest group in Canada. The best example is supply management. All the other parties in the House, they want to protect 13,000 producers under supply management. They want them to keep their privilege. They represent 10% of the farmers in Canada. So all the other farmers are under a free market. And we are paying twice the price for these products. So I won't work for special interest group, and that party won't do that. That's why we're doing politics differently. We are working for all Canadians, and that's why we decided to call it the People's Party of Canada.
Now, a big challenge for you, obviously, will be to field enough candidates to fill 338 ridings across the Canada from coast to coast to coast. How are you making out with that? Have you asked maybe some of the other Tory MPs to cross the floor to come join the PPC?
No, I won't ask any MPs to cross the floor. What I'm doing right now, we are starting to work on the organization. We want to have a riding association ready before the end of this year in 338 ridings. And people, they are doing that right now. We have 2 months to do that. We'll do it. And in January, we'll look for candidates. We need to be ready for the end of June, and we'll be ready. The advantage that we are having, people are coming to us because they like the ideas. And after 2.5 weeks, we have more than 20,000 members. So that's great. And with them, we are starting the riding association all across the country.
So realistically, how many seats do you think you can potentially win in the next election next fall?
We want to be the government. So we'll do everything for having the more seats. But, being realistic, I don't know what will happen. But what happened in Quebec this week with the new government, and in also New Brunswick with a new government, people are ready to vote for a new party. They voted for the CAQ in Quebec, so they're ready to vote for a new party. I think they want real change in this country, and the old parties that they're doing politics and they try to please everybody and with promising everything to everybody. Canadians are fed up with that. They want to change, and we will represent that change. So what would be the result in a year from now? I cannot tell you, but I can tell you that we have a momentum, and I'm very happy with it.
Let me ask you something. A lot of us here in the West, especially in Alberta, we feel there's a lot of alienation, a separation between us and Ottawa. There's even talk of Alberta separation, right? So how would you really bridge that gap then between Ottawa, Ontario, and Quebec and Alberta?
Just speaking about our constitution, respecting our constitution, and understanding the people in Alberta. Actually, people call me the Albertan from Quebec because we share the same values. You know, I'm a real conservative, and I want to fight for a new equalization formula, a flat tax for entrepreneurs in this country, 10%, two tax rate for Canadians, one at 15%, one at 25%. And no more federal intervention in provincial jurisdiction. So I think when you respect the Constitution, you'll be able to have the support of people in Alberta, but also people in Quebec that want also the federal government to respect the Constitution. Right now, the Conservative, they don't want to speak about that. They don't want to speak about the equalization. They're too afraid to not having seats in Quebec. But I'm telling you that Quebecers and people in Atlantic Canada, they're ready for having this kind of discussion. So we want to represent all Canadians, but people in Alberta, I think they like our platform. It's a real economic platform for real changes in this country.
And get that Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion built. Job number one. Now, if you were ever to become Prime Minister of Canada, what would you do differently than Justin Trudeau?
But first of all, you know, the bill C-69, it's a mess. It's not helping to build new projects in Canada like pipeline. So let's abolish that. Let's put another bill, having a process that would be shorter. And so we have to be sure that the private sector will be able to build pipelines, not the federal government. So, you know, I believe, and I'm coming from Quebec, and I can tell you that Quebecers, they're open for pipelines also, because you know what happened in Lac Mégantic more than 3 years ago, the big train derailed in a small village over there. So that was a tragedy over there. And people, they know that it's safer to transport oil and gas by pipelines and instead of by train. So I'm 100% for pipeline. Let's have a process that is short, a process that will help us and give the private sector the possibility to build pipelines.
So how would you handle consultations with Indigenous groups on the pipelines?
We have to do consultation, it's okay, but you know, you have to plan these consultations. The federal government has an obligation to do consultation, not an obligation to please everybody and every special interest group. So the federal government just announced that they will start the negotiation or the consultation, so that's okay. But the federal government must have done that a couple of months ago. Now we still have another delay of a couple of months. So that's why the process, it's too long, and we have to have a new process with a new bill.
Let's talk reconciliation for just a moment here. Is the government doing enough towards rebuilding those relationships with Indigenous communities in Canada?
But what I want to have in our platform, it's a new way, a new vision of our relationship with the First Nation, based on property rights on reserve. And so I'm working on something that would be on our platform. I think, yes, we must acknowledge the First Nation, but we must have a new way to engage our relationship with them based on the Western civilization values. And that would be part of our platform.
Now, your thoughts on the new trade deal, the trilateral trade deal with Canada, the United States and Mexico, the USMCA. Did Canada give away a little too much?
You know, I think that was a tough negotiation because Justin Trudeau put him in a tough spot in the beginning of the negotiation. So right now, and I said, just put the cartel of supply management on the table, the abolition of that cartel, and you will be able to have more. You know, I'm very disappointed right now that there's still tariff on steel and aluminum and softwood lumber. It is not part of the deal. Maybe the best deal would have been to put supply management on the table, to abolish that on a period of 5 to 8 years. And like that, I'm sure that in the US, we will have been able to have more from the US. Right now, we have a deal. It is good, but it is not the best deal because we don't have steel and aluminum part of the deal, and we still have tariffs on softwood lumber.
Now, we only have a few moments left here in the interview. What do you see as the biggest issues for next year's federal election?
The economy, the economy, the economy. That would be that. And maybe also about the immigration. You know, we must have a discussion on immigration, and I want to have that kind of discussion with Canadians. I'm the only one who wants to have that discussion, and I think that would be important also.
Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada, thanks a lot for joining me today from Ottawa.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.